if we're talking about how to convince people to at least allow nuclear, and we're talking to the left of centre, the obvious thing is you want an alternative to fossil fuels. Well, I'm sorry, but this battery technology you keep talking about is still probably further away than you hope it is. So we're just going to keep burning coal. How about you get on the nuclear train? So that would be the pitch to lefties on nuclear. It wouldn't be me saying what I actually believe, because I don't think there's anything wrong with coal, but it would be how to speak to that crowd. I don't think you really need to convince the right. You just say, if you don't like it, if you think it's expensive, legalize it anyway. I mean, that's not an argument for banning something. We discussed that earlier. And as I said before, I think I'm the wrong person to ask, because I think we are really close to the tipping point. This may seem like a weird analogy, but gay marriage. Right? So about 20 years ago, everybody had to pretend they were against it even if they were for it. Today, pretty much everyone has to pretend they're for it even if they're against it. And that tipped in about a week. I remember being involved in this discussion for a long time. Thank you, I appreciate it, thanks. There was a lot of people, don't worry about them. There were a lot of people who believed something and they were pretending they were against it because it was before the tipping point. And once you hit that tipping point, everyone had to go back and pretend that they always agreed with it all along. Right? I think nuclear is getting close to that tipping point, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask about how are we going to convince people. I think that argument is almost already won. I think the bigger argument is how do we convince people that it's more important to ensure poor people have access to consistent, reliable, cheap energy than it is to play other games about how moral we are because we decreased warming by 0.1 degrees in 100 years' time.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting perspective, John. I think that I tend to try and convince people of things. It's one of my big failings. But I think in this conversation, we should be asking and listening. And partly for the reason you're saying is that there's actually a lot more people that are already supportive of this, or they're curious and want to learn. So, and the reality is that earlier surveys found that lots of people were in favour but thought they were in a tiny minority because everyone was too afraid to raise the topic at the barbecue. Now we're in a world where we can talk about it, and then people are discovering, you already like nuclear, you're interested in it. And so maybe that's why it looks like something changes in a week when actually it's actually been changing kind of invisibly below the surface.
I agree, that's my point.
Yeah. So it looks like it changes suddenly. And I agree, we are getting closer to that tipping point. We need to have the conversations, and we need to broaden out and talk about, the bigger issues, the energy security issues and all of those things as well.